So this is just our straight up hurricane. Well, Mini Pro is gonna come up here. Our Hurricane Ian evacuation story. Just we're gonna speak straight up until how we evacuated. Basically, Hurricane Ian, we had been tracking it for about a week before it hit on September 28th, 2022. And it just so happened to be his dad's birthday about a week in advance. And I was outside and I was just, this is a week before it happened. I was like, I feel like we need to go up for your dad's birthday. And I didn't know why I felt that way, but then all of a sudden something really weird. I started missing Kroger, which is a grocery store that is in our former hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, that we frequented. And I just started feeling these weird feelings. I was like, why do I want to go to Kroger? And his dad's birthday was, it's a good birthday. It wasn't like a significant birthday, but I just started feeling kind of weird. And there was also some event in Helen, Georgia that we had thought about going to. And
I'd even looked up like Airbnbs there to see how much they cost and VRBOs. But
it was happening just days before the hurricane, and just should have listened to myself, but we decided to stick around, but we were still watching it. Then, so the hurricane hit on Wednesday, September 28th. That Sunday, we were upstairs rescreening some of our screened-in porches, and I looked out the window and I saw a swarm of bees taking over a branch of tree. I didn't know they were honeybees. Our neighbor had just had a yellow jacket nest in the ground in their yard removed just days before. And I was like, but if the yellow jackets were in the ground, why are these bees in the tree? So we went outside. I called my neighbors. I was like, look at this. And there were all these honeybees. And I looked it up, and it's a typical thing that honeybees do sometimes, but just like with that hurricane tracking, I just thought it was a weird behavior that we had lived there for 2 years and never experienced anything like that before. And they were at a branch that was level with our house. So it was up about 12, 13 feet.
15 feet, yes.
And I was like, oh no. And I just started thinking, animals do weird things when weather is brewing, bad weather is brewing. Animals do weird things. And I thought flood. As soon as I saw those bees, I thought flood. And I was like, well, when we first moved down, it was Tropical Storm Sally.
And it rained a lot.
It rained 17 inches in 24 hours. And I was like, the water got up high, just not that high. And I thought, why am I thinking flood? Is it seriously going to flood that high? And I just started getting all these weird feelings. I'm a Reiki master. I'm certified, and I do have a very strong intuition. I'm not psychic. Don't want to own up to being psychic or anything. I just have a lot of intuitions. And I told Tommy, I don't know. Let's see. So then that hurricane was tracking up towards the Tampa area. And all of a sudden,
it was tracking to Tampa. It was going to hit Tampa Bay, and then it was going to hit Sarasota. And
that was like Monday, Tuesday, and then about Wednesday, all of a sudden it started coming towards
Sanibel. Tuesday during the day. Tuesday afternoon.
Oh yeah, Tuesday afternoon of the 27th.
Then they said, it's going to hit Sanibel. They issued a mandatory evacuation. And we still were going to stay because our neighbors had stayed, and
with Charlie.
They had stayed for numerous times, especially our neighbor across the street. He's been on the island for a really long time, and we thought, well, if they leave, then we'll leave. And but they were staying, and
we had stayed in communication with them. And then it got towards Tuesday evening, and it was really coming. And Tommy called the police to see what the wind, how the causeway between Fort Myers and Sanibel was, and they were like, if you're gonna go, you need to go, because once the wind gets up to 40 miles an hour, it's not passable. We would not recommend you do that. And we were kind of like, Tommy was like, Carolyn, you kept getting these feelings. I was like, I know, but where are we gonna go? So we love the Helen, Georgia area, and I just thought if the bees went up high, we need to go up high. And so we booked while he started packing our things, and my cousin called, and she was in a panic, and she's in Alabama, and she's like, I just heard that Sanibel is going to be underwater, and in fact, that's what happened.
Because that was my main concern, at least, was the storm surge, because then they started talking about 10 to 15 foot storm surge, and we were like, well, that's not a good, because I didn't want to be stuck I said, well, I don't want to be stuck out here or something if something happens to the causeway. And that's what would have happened if we had stayed. So
and you kept going. And your feelings, Carolyn, your feelings. You got to listen. Oops. This is our reason, like why we really made our ultimate decision is our fur babies. We knew that they wouldn't be able to go potty. Other people have said things to us like, well, I would have just stayed just to see what happened. And I was like, okay, well, if you had animals and you thought flood, where are your animals going to go potty? Like things like that. Yeah. And so we were like, nope, we got to go. So I started booking us an Airbnb. He started packing. He said, we need to be out of here I want to be out of here by midnight. So that was like 10 o'clock, 10:30. Right. I started booking an Airbnb in the Georgia area. He started packing. I grabbed our binders, which are health, pets, and house binder, which is all part of our evacuation plan, and just tried to, as calmly as I could, try to pack for like a week's vacation. That's what I thought to do. Didn't pack any warm clothes, which were very needed as we had to continue up after staying in Georgia. It hit, and we had to continue up towards his family's house in Indiana. But that's our evacuation story. The funny part about it, though, is as we packed and got all in the car, we're driving over the causeway, and Tommy's like this, like terrified, like, oh.
Cash.
He's driving over the causeway going, oh, and I'm like, I can't believe we're doing this. And like we left the house at what, 12:30?
It was about 12:38, I think, when we left. And it was weird because there was like, we saw one other car on the road leaving about the same time. Mm-hmm. And people had always read, if you were going to evacuate, it's best to do it in the middle of the night because there's nobody on the road. Well, we saw no cars. And it was very strange because the island was very serene at the time. It wasn't raining, and the wind had kind of stopped when we left.
It had been raining.
It had been raining.
Which was weird because we thought, they said that it wasn't going to rain this much. And it had been raining all day. But
everything was kind of serene. Everything looked nice. All the lights were on and stuff like that.
But it was starting to be windy, and we heard this weird whirring noise. I can only describe it as it sounding like an airplane engine or something whirring, and it was whirring, and then all of a sudden the frogs started singing with it. And it was like, if you've ever seen the show Lost, it was similar to the smoke monster or whatever, like lurking, because everything was dark. And I was like, I just stood on the porch when we were getting ready to pack, or while we were packing for a second, and I was like, this is weird. It's like Ian is a monster that's hiding out there, and it's telling us to get out.
Right. Like the lost smoke monster.
Yeah, the lost smoke monster. So as we're driving, we get in the car and drive, and we just drove straight through the night. Usually our cat Monica is nervous in the car for the first hour and sometimes poops herself, and she didn't do this time. We had them all in a crate.
Not until we got to Ocala.
Yeah, and then we drove 4 hours or so, and then that's when we thought we could stop, refuel, and Monica did have an accident then, but we were prepared. Always travel with cleanup supplies. And
it was weird because it wasn't raining when we left Sanibel. Everything was pretty serene until we got over by the airport in Fort Myers, and then it started raining pretty heavily, and it rained on us all the way until it finally stopped when we got to Ocala. So it was pouring down rain pretty good the whole time. So
it was, and they had all the gas stations wrapped in like saran wrap, because the wind and the water, I guess, and that was to protect them. It was a very strange thing, but then we got and just kept driving and 8 o'clock in the morning. Tommy's driving, and I'm like, please don't fall asleep. Right. And we're drinking coffee and talking and have music going and trying our best to stay awake.
Drank a Red Bull for the first time in years.
It's awful. Everything we could do to stay awake, and we got to Georgia probably about 8 o'clock in the morning or so, and ate breakfast. We're still exhausted, and calling everybody, letting them know that we at least were still, awake and still driving, and then headed up to Georgia for a couple of days. And then that's when I took screenshots on my phone of the hurricane as it was hitting the island, and I knew it wasn't, and I had lost communication with our neighbors that did stay, and it was really, really a scary situation, but we did it. And that's our sole evacuation story from Hurricane Ian.
Yep.
And now the saga continues.
Yep.